What occurred when I was home alone left me astounded, a genuine tale of betrayal. I ought to have never lowered my defenses. That night the house was eerily silent, except for the occasional creak of the wooden floors beneath my bare feet, the dim glow of the hallway light. I had just made it to the living room, where I found myself standing with my arms crossed, gazing intently. At the clock on the wall it was nearly midnight. My husband was away, and my sister had requested a favor from me to let her son, Anton, stay over for the weekend. I accepted without a moment's doubt. Anton had always been the quiet, respectful type. He stood tall for his age, his sharp features lending him an air of maturity that belied his years. He had always addressed me as Auntie, his voice smooth and polite. His gaze never lingering too long, never crossing any lines. At least that's what I had thought. I'd turned off the TV and sighed, reaching my arms high above me. Perhaps I ought to see how he's doing. He had spent most of the evening in the guest room, keeping to himself. But something about the stillness of the house made me uneasy. I approached his door and rapped on it gently. Gently. "Anton, you still awake?" "No," response. I hesitated. Then slowly pushed the door open. The room was dark. The only illumination coming from his phone screen. He was lying on the bed, shirtless. His sculpted physique was scarcely concealed by the delicate blanket. His eyes flickered toward him as he propped himself up on one elbow. "Auntie," his voice was husky low. I cleared my throat, suddenly feeling as though I didn't belong. "I just wanted to check on you. You've been quiet all evening." He smirked, his gaze trailing down my figure before he looked away. "I'm well, simply lost in thought. Thinking about what I asked." Stepping inside, he let out a breathy chuckle. "You?" A strange tension crackled in the air. My pulse quickened. "Anton, please don't make jokes like that." "Who said I was joking?" His voice was smooth, controlled, too controlled. "I should have walked out." "Very well then. I ought to have closed the door and created some space between us. But I didn't. And that's when everything started to change. I should have left the room. I ought to have pivoted, shut the door firmly behind me, and simply walked away. But I didn't. Something. And the way Anton looked at me, so calm and so confident, made my feet feel like they were sinking into the floor. My breath came in shallow waves as I forced a chuckle, attempting to dispel the thick, suffocating tension that had settled between us. "Anton isn't funny," I muttered. With my arms folded tightly, more for steadiness than anything else, he remained unmoved, neither flinching nor laughing. He reclined against the headboard, his sculpted chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. "I never claimed it was," he murmured, his voice deep, almost challenging. I swallowed hard. "You've had a long day, get some sleep." As I began to turn away, something stopped me in my tracks. As I was about to take a step, his voice halted me. "You don't have to be scared of me." I froze, scared. I gradually pivoted to confront him. But this time, his expression had changed. The smirk had vanished, his dark eyes, so familiar yet suddenly inscrutable, were fixed on mine with an intensity that sent a tightness through my stomach. "You always appear so wound up." He spoke, his voice gentle. Now almost teasing. "Is it because you don't trust me, or because you don't trust yourself?" My lips parted but no words came out. He was no longer a child. He wasn't the boy who used to run around my house playing with toy cars and begging for cookies. He stood as a man now, tall and robust, his presence enveloping the room like a dense fog. And he understood it. I let out a small, breathless laugh, shaking my head. "You really need to stop talking like this. Resembling Anton." What his brow lifted slightly, like a mun. I sensed the warmth rising along my neck. You're my nephew. I reminded him though. My voice lacked the firmness I needed. He studied me. His gaze remained steadfast. That's just a word, he said. After a moment doesn't change what's happening right now. My heart pounded. And what exactly do you think is happening? I faced the challenge of trying to regain mastery of the circumstances. His lips curled slightly, yet he remained silent. Instead, he slowly pushed the blanket off, revealing more of his bare skin. His muscles shifting as he sat up completely. I stepped back instinctively. A significant error, as he became aware. He noticed the tremor in your voice, a clear sign of your nerves. Almost amused by why I clenched my jaw, because you're acting as if I can see you. He interrupted, his voice suddenly closer. I was completely unaware that he had shifted his position. Like I've always. I have observed you. The air left my lungs in a sharp exhale. This was wrong, it was beyond wrong. But my body wasn't listening to my mind. Go to sleep. I whispered, gripping the doorknob behind me, before you say something you regret. He exhaled, tilting his head slightly. I never regret telling the truth. I yanked the door open, stepping out as swiftly as I could the instant his shot rang out behind me. I leaned my back against the cool wood. My chest heaves and sinks with uneven breaths. What just transpired? I ought to have felt anger. Should have stormed back inside and put an end to whatever this was before it even started. But instead, all I could think about was the way he'd looked at me. And the fact that I wasn't sure if I wanted him to stop. Sleep eluded me that night. No matter how many times I turned over, pulled the blanket tighter, or forced my eyes shut, my mind wouldn't quiet down. Anton's voice echoed in my head, his words. His gaze, the intensity of his look directed at me. It was as if he possessed a secret I was yet to uncover, patiently anticipating the moment I would finally grasp it as well. I never intended to experience these emotions. I wasn't supposed to let my thoughts drift back to the way his body moved when he sat up, the way his voice had wrapped around me like a slow, deliberate temptation. I wasn't meant to feel the urge to open that door once more, the clock on my nightstand ticking away. With a sigh, I pushed the sheets away, feeling the warmth of the morning light on my skin. My body burning from the inside out. Maybe I just needed a glass of water. At a distraction, something to bring me back to my senses, padding softly down the hallway. I kept my steps light, careful not to make any noise. The house stood in an unsettling silence. There, thick with something I couldn't name, I reached the kitchen, grabbed a glass and filled it with water. My fingers tightening around the cool surface as I took slow, measured sips. Inhale deeply, simply inhale. But the instant I turned around, I was paralyzed. Anton was standing in the doorway. His shirt was still off, sweatpants hanging low on his hips, his lean muscles casting sharp shadows under the dim light. His expression was unreadable. His eyes locked onto mine with that same quiet intensity. I swallowed hard, gripping the counter behind me, unable to let go. Sleep, my voice came out softer than I intended. He took a slow step forward, neither could you. I tried to smile, tried to act normal, but the air between us was anything but it's just hot tonight, murmured. As I took another sip of water to divert my thoughts, he leaned against the fridge, his arms crossing over his chest. That's not why, I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Anton, are you going to keep pretending? He cut me off, his voice low, because I won't. I blinked, my breath hitched. I'm not quite sure what you mean. His lips curved, yet there was no trace of amusement in his eyes. Indeed, you do. My heart raced with such intensity that I was convinced he could hear it echoing in the silence. The distance between us felt non-existent, even though he was still a few feet away. "It's not appropriate to address me in this manner." I whispered, "Why not?" He tilted his head, pondering a label, for it felt unjust. Ish leaped back, my hold on the glass growing firmer. His gaze deepened into shadows. "So what keeps you rooted in this spot?" I found myself speechless as Thitha took another step closer. I should have moved, should have pushed past him, and gone back to my room, but my legs refused to listen. I could sense the warmth emanating from him now, the way his breath brushed softly against my skin. He was too close, "Just say the word." He murmured, "Tell me to leave." Stillness, a dense, oppressive stillness that caused my heartbeat to thud in my throat. Speak it, urge him to leave, yet held back. I couldn't, and he knew it. His fingers brushed against, mine barely touching, but the sensation shot through me like fire. I inhaled, sharply, my body betraying me in ways I never thought possible. Then, just as quickly as he had come close, he pulled back. "Good night, Auntie," he said softly, his lips barely twitching before he turned, and walked away, disappearing into the darkness of the hallway I stood. There I gripped the counter, my legs trembling. This was a dangerous game, and I had just let him take the first move. I didn't leave my room. The next morning, the sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting golden streaks across sheets, but I refused to acknowledge. Yet my body felt like it was burning from the inside out, every nerve ending still tingling from last night's encounter. In the kitchen, I had let him get too close. I had let myself want it, the shame curled in my stomach. Coiling tighter with every breath, I told myself it was nothing that I had imagined it, that Anton was just testing boundaries. Challenging boundaries, much like the men of his generation, he was bold and audacious, oblivious to the repercussions. But deep down, I knew that was a lie, because I hadn't imagined the way his fingers had brushed against mine. The way his voice had softened when he uttered, "Good night, Auntie." The way I'd waited for something more. A knock at my door sent a jolt through me. I shot up my heart, hammering, yeah. The handle turned, and before I could say anything else, Anton stepped inside. I inhaled sharply. He was fresh out of the shower, hair damp, his white t-shirt clinging to his broad shoulders. He didn't look like the boy I used to tuck into bed when he visited. During the summers, he looked like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. "Please subscribe channel." I pulled the blanket over myself, my pulse spiking. "You could have waited for me to say come in." He smirked. "You didn't say no." With a sharp exhale through my nose, I tightened my grip on the sheet. "What do you want, Anton?" He leaned against the door frame, arms crossing over his chest. "You steered clear of me all morning." I swallowed. I was just tired. His eyes danced briefly across my figure. Slow, deliberate liar. I clenched my jaw, trying to summon the strength to shut him down, to regain the control I had lost last night. "Anton, this can't happen. Whatever you believe is unfolding, it must come to an end." He took a step forward, a stiffened. "I mean it." His lips twitched. "Then why are you shaking?" I hated him for noticing, hated that he could see through the walls. "I was desperately trying to rebuild. You're playing with fire." I whispered. His jaw tightened. And for the first time, I saw something flicker in his expression. Something darker, something almost possessive. "Maybe I want to get burned." He sucked in a breath. He took another step. "Tell me to leave." He murmured, "Just like last night." I opened my mouth, and then the front door slammed shut downstairs. I jolted. My sister was home. Anton's gazes stayed on mine for a long, unbearable second before his lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Saved by the bell," he murmured. Then just like that, he turned and walked out of my room, leaving me gripping the sheets, my entire body trembling. This wasn't over. Not even close. I could barely breathe. Even after Anton walked out of my room. Even after I heard my sister's voice downstairs. My body remained frozen in place. My fingers gripping the sheets like they were the only thing keeping me grounded. This wasn't normal, this wasn't right. But tell that to the fire still licking through my veins. I forced myself out of bed, running a hand through my hair as I took deep breaths. I needed to get a grip. I needed to act normal, because if my sister so much as looked at me the wrong way, I knew I would crumble under the weight of this thing that had taken hold of me. Straightening my clothes, I walked downstairs, finally awake. My sister. Helena teased from the kitchen, pulling groceries out of the bags. I was starting to think you'd sleep the whole day away. My force of smile, pretending that my world wasn't completely unraveling at the seams. I just had a long night. Anton was sitting at the table, relaxed, calm. Like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just cornered me in my own room and dared me to stop him. His gaze lifted the moment I walked in. I felt it skim over me, slow and knowing, like he was waiting for me to react, like he wanted me to. I ignored him. I was compelled to. Helena glanced between us, frowning slightly. Something going on my stomach. Clenched. What? No, why? She shrugged, placing a carton of milk in the fridge. I don't know, you just look weird. I let out a forced laugh, moving to grab a glass from the cupboard. Thanks, Anton, the absolute devil. Chuckled under his breath. I shot him a warning look, but he just smirked like he enjoyed watching me squirm, like he was in control now. And the worst part, Helena didn't notice the tension crackling in the air. Oh, by the way, she remarked nonchalantly, I need to head to the office once more. This evening, there's a last-minute dinner with a client. Would you mind watching over Anton for him? My heart stopped. I went rigid, fingers straightening around the glass. Anton home with me alone. This couldn't be happening. Helena didn't wait for my response. It should be back late. Maybe after midnight. You two will be okay, right? Anton reclined in his chair, stretching in a manner that caused my breath to catch. I think we'll be just fine. Snapped my gaze to him. My chest is tightening. He was enjoying this every second of it. Helena smiled, oblivious. Great, I'll head out around 7. I barely heard the rest of the conversation. All I could think about was the way Anton was looking at me. The way his fingers slowly tapped against the wooden table. The way his smirk lingered, carrying an unspoken promise this evening. This wouldn't be left unfinished. The house was too quiet. Helena had left 2 hours ago, and I'd done everything I could to keep myself busy washing dishes, folding laundry. Even watching the most mind-numbing show I could find on TV. But no matter what I did, I felt him. Anton lurking, watching, waiting. I told myself I wouldn't goop stairs. I told myself I'd stay on the couch, keep my mind occupied and pretend nothing had ever happened, but then I heard it. The slow, deliberate creak of a floorboard. I turned my head pulse spiking. Anton stood at the top of the stairs, leaning against the railing. His dark eyes locked onto mine. He didn't say a word, he didn't have to. The weight of his stare alone was enough to pin me in place. I was wondering how long you'd avoid me, he finally murmured. I swallowed hard. I'm not avoiding you. A smirk, really. I forced my gaze back to the TV, even though I wasn't actually watching it. Go to bed, Anton. I heard him move slow and hurried footsteps down the stairs. Are you scared of me? I exhaled sharply, gripping the throw pillow on my lap. Go. Tubed, I felt him before I saw him. The warmth of his body, the presence of him standing so close behind the couch that I could practically feel the heat radiating off him. You weren't scared last night, he murmured. My throat tightened. That was a mistake. A pause, and tonight, I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing air into my lungs. Anton. This is wrong. Silence. Then I don't care. A shiver raced down my spine. Tell me you don't want this, he said, voice quiet but firm. Tell me to leave right now, and I will. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out because we both knew the truth. The air between us grew heavier, thicker, charged, with something neither of us were willing to name. My fingers trembled against the pillow, and when I finally turned my head, I was met with the intensity of his gaze. His jaw was tight, his hands were clenched, but the worst part, I wasn't sure who was going to break first, him or me. And then the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Helena. I jolted back to reality so fast it made my head spin. Anton exhaled slowly. His eyes still locked onto mine. Saved by the bell, he murmured, his lips curling, then without another word, he turned and disappeared into the shadows of the hallway, leaving me breathless, trembling and painfully aware that this wasn't the end, not even close. It